What's going on, everybody, for USA Muay Thai? My name's Nate Freeman. I'm joined today by the lady who is going to be representing us at the IFMA World Championships at the 57 kilo division in the elite category, TK Mosher. TK, how are you doing today?
Good. Actually, I think I'll be representing the 54 kilogram
Okay.
division. I did end up fighting on the 57 kilo division during the Grand Nationals just because the division had emptied out when the brackets were closed.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I was basing it off of the Grand Nationals tournament, and anyway, I apologize.
No
54
worries.
kilos. All right. So let's just dive right into it. First and foremost, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you came into Muay Thai. I know that from what I've seen and from what I've heard, you didn't have much of an athletic background growing up until you found Taekwondo in South Korea when you were going back to your grandparents. And um, I'd love to hear what made you sort of start pursuing that, and then how that transitioned into um, pursuing Muay Thai.
Yeah, so I did have exposure when I was like a young kid, like at age 3 or 4, in Taekwondo. And that was mostly to get my energy out because I have a twin sister and we, fight and play all the time. But after like age 4, I didn't really continue it, mostly because I was super shy as a kid. And then what you're referencing is when I was in I think my sophomore year of high school, I was visiting my grandparents over the summer, as I have done in many times in the past, and I just figured um, I really wanted to get into sports. Even growing up, I just never had the opportunity because I was just told to focus on my studies. So while I was there in the summer, I picked up. It was actually not taekwondo. It's called Taekwondo Musur. It's a hybrid martial art that kind of has taekwondo, aikido, or hapkido influence. Um, but I did that like twice a day, every day. Immediately fell in love with it. It was the first time I'd ever done a physical activity. I was literally obsessed. I like probably to my sister and my grandparents' annoyance, I like wouldn't want to do anything else because all I wanted to do is be back at the gym. And I did that for one summer, went back to the States, obviously to back to life. And then I sort of self practiced on my own to just try to keep up. And when I went back the following summer, I continued training with the same gym, and ended up getting testing and getting my first degree black belt there that in that second summer. And that's when I was like, okay, now I'm serious about this a little bit. So when I came back to the States, I got into Taekwondo. It was in the WTF style, and that was only for about a year before I moved to Boston, which is where I started my undergrad. And that's where I found Taekwondo again because, new gym, new city. But that's where I actually started competing. I had a few, little competitions in Taekwondo. Also decided that I really liked competing, and so I was really dedicated to the competition team at my taekwondo gym at the time, which was J.H. Kim Taekwondo Institute, the Boston location. And after doing that for about 6 years, I had kind of wanted to be like a well-rounded martial artist. So, I had done a ton of striking, but hadn't really done any grappling. Um, I was going through a breakup. I was graduating from grad school with my PT degree. So I was, lots of things were changing. I decided to change um, sports and try out MMA. And the gym that I ended up joining, all the striking classes and the grappling classes were at the same time. So I was kind of lost about how I was supposed to, become an MMA fighter. But since I already had striking, I was like, I'll just stick with that. uh, did the trial Muay Thai class there and was just hooked. But at the time, I was, working at a clinic, uh, outpatient clinic as a physical therapist, and was very busy with that. So the prospect of fighting, like, competitively, wasn't really on the top of the list. Um, but as I started my own business and really focused on working with combat athletes only, I thought, it would be nice for me to go through a camp and a fight just to see what it's like and have some more empathy and insight on how to help my clients. that's how it always starts, I guess. And then had my first fight in 2019 January, and was like immediately hooked. So like I just keep getting deeper and deeper into the martial arts world and more involved, I guess. Um, but yeah, from that first fight, I've just been trying to get more and more fights, and the current gym that I'm at, I've just really flourished and felt like I've been able to achieve my goals.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Tell me a little bit about how, because I'm sure there's a lot of similarities, how you've been able to blend your Taekwondo and the other background that you said. I can't even say, I
Yeah.
can't even pronounce it, but how you can, how you've blended those into your Muay Thai game.
So at first, I guess I had to just forget about everything that I had learned, just because the kicking weapons are different in traditional martial arts versus Muay Thai. Uh, so I had to change a lot of things first, I think, before I felt like it could be integrated in any way. So, keeping my hands up versus keeping them down to protect the body, and um, kicking with the shin instead of the instep, and then honestly trying to incorporate boxing with my kicking, which, you know, in sparring, I feel like I do well blending the boxing and the kicking, but 15 fights in and I still am primarily a kicker. So I think in that regard, you can kind of see the Taekwondo background because uh, I always tend to fall back and rely on my kicks more than my hands.
Yeah, cool. Um, So then the other thing you mentioned that you do physical therapy work. You're a doctor of physical therapy now, and you work with combat sports athletes. Um, and like you mentioned, you took your first fight as a Muay Thai athlete really to help yourself in physical therapy as a physical therapist. But as you've grown, how has that been able to blend together, and how has one helped the other? I'm sure that your work as a physical therapist helps you understand your body better, and like when it's time to maybe back off of training if you're going too hard or something like that, or on the other end, understanding maybe some of what your athletes are going through that you're working with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that I feel like the PT industry as a whole is weak about is appropriately loading clients. And usually you hear, you go to physical therapy and you use this yellow band for like months and months and months, and it's not enough. And so people get stuck in these like injury loops and never return to sport because they think they're better. Their PT says they're ready to go back. They go back, but then they just get hurt again. And I think it's really just about people not under like physical therapists not understanding the sport well enough to understand that this is not just gym class. It's like an actual sport. It's very intense. You are throwing your limbs at things, like your body is meant to hit other body parts. So it's like pretty violent in that regard. But yeah, like as a fighter, I have more of an insight on the workload, the work capacity, and how to really blend physical therapy into that. Because if you're in camp, for example, and you have a minor injury, you're already doing quite a lot in that camp between strength and conditioning, not, physical therapy too, if you're working with one, and your Muay Thai sports specific training. And so if your physical therapist is overloading you or underloading you, you just can't get better in the time frame that you need to get into a fight. And I found that over the years, I think I do a really good job of being a little more on the aggressive side of physical therapy, but getting fighters safely to their fight dates, while modifying either their workload, what communicating with the coaches, or just with the physical therapy, whether it's just three exercises or whether they have a separate routine that's kind of takes them 45 minutes to an hour to do, but would be worth it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's an interesting sort of um, avenue that a lot of athletes don't really have is, um, and it's an excellent way to sort of understand. not
Yeah.
only what athletes are going through, but as an athlete yourself, understanding your body and understanding um, how different sort of activities affect your workload and things like that. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so moving on, I'd love to hear about your experience at the USA Muay Thai Grand Nationals. You actually, you like you mentioned, moved up a weight class and competed against Sierra McDonald, and you lost that fight, but you are still moving down to 54 kilos and representing us in the World Championship. So I'd love to hear about your experience there and what you learned and what you're excited about for representing us in the IFMA World Championships.
Yeah. So I love the experience. It was very well run. I hadn't fought at this tournament before, obviously, but I had seen it before because my teammate Jesse Lee, now Jesse Manini, had fought there on the inaugural year. So it was always like a goal of mine to get to this level. But yeah, it ran very smoothly. I just wish, that there had been, other women in my division. That's like the only sad part for me. Um, but I fought Cece before and lost to her, so it's a little bit of a shame to lose again. But we are in, slightly different weight classes. So and she's like a phenomenal fighter, so can't take anything away from her. Um, but yeah, I had this isn't my first time doing same multiple weigh-ins, even though I technically only weighed in once. But it is good to kind of get that feel and that experience since I'll be hopefully doing it multiple times in Greece. Um, and it taught me a little bit about refueling. I feel like I didn't do as good of a job this time, and so I was able to learn from that and turn right around. I had a fight this past weekend and did better that time. So um, it's always just a learning experience. I'm super excited to get back in there and represent the team. I'm super excited to get some international competition. It's just something that I fought a Canadian last year, but other than that, I haven't really gotten to fight anyone outside of the country. So I'm super stoked about that, and really to see where I can represent this division overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's and you even answered sort of my next question was that you have already competed since the USA Muay Thai Grand Nationals earlier this month. You've already gotten another fight in. So you've been staying active, and I think the thing that I was going to ask outside of that is what you've been working on to improve your game at the gym at Hard Knocks, and yeah, just sort of what you see as ways that you are working to improve in preparation for
Yeah.
the World Championships.
So I'm working on, I mean, there's always so many things to work on. But I guess right now in to kind of like generally summarize what I'm working on is kind of like patience and timing. Um, I've been working on trying to balance aggression and patience, and also I feel like I've gotten a little bit too patient, so I'm trying to balance that together at this point. But I think for me it's about really using my brain more than kind of being automatic, uh, keeping my eyes, like my brain eye open, like, you know, the mind's eye open and seeing what the opponent is doing more than just focusing on what I'm doing. Um, I know that's kind of vague, but I feel like other than the usual, like, keep the chin down, the hands up, like,
Yeah,
perfect technique. I think those are the big things that I'm kind of trying to work in right now.
yeah, that's really interesting. So, moving on, we're going to shift gears a little bit and try to do some rapid fire questions so that fans can get to know you a little bit more. So, I'll start off by asking, what is your favorite striking technique?
Oh, I'm kind of boring. I just love a good roundhouse kick. Just love a good roundhouse kick. Body kicks, I just love them. There's nothing more satisfying, especially, I mean, with the tournaments we'll be wearing gear, but with the no gear fights, I just love that shin contact on the body.
Yeah, yeah. I can't go wrong there for sure. Um, your favorite either book or favorite movie?
um, One of my favorite book, I mostly read fantasy, I guess. Back in but I guess my one of my favorite books is this book called Dreaming the Eagle. It's about the Boudica in from the UK,
Mhm.
very cool. Um, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Um, I saw on your Instagram that you have a little corgi. Um, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your corgi and how you came together, and yeah, just I'd love to hear as my pet, as my dog sitting right here
Oh,
on the other side of the computer. Um,
awesome.
I'd love to hear about your story with your dog as well.
So she's a Shiba Inu. Um, I got her in 2018. Right after I had started my physical therapy business, and right before really starting to think about fighting. Um, I'm, just being super open. I just don't want to have kids. I'm just not that person. I've always wanted to have a dog. She's my first dog really in my entire life, and I don't know, I just love her so much. She's like 6 years old. She's perfect. She's sassy. She's smart. She talks back. But she also, like, I mean, she really allows me to go outside. Sometimes I'm so tired from training, she lets me get outside, get some sunshine, and then we spend some quality time just like in the woods every day. So honestly, like, she's brought a lot of peace and quiet to my life, but also joy because she's, just a sassy Shiba.
Yeah, I love dogs, and I love my dog, and I loved seeing pictures of you and your dog. So that's really cool.
Thank you.
um, And then the other thing I was gonna ask is, I always appreciate I don't have any tattoos myself, but I always appreciate sort of the artwork that, athletes have with their tattoo work. So I don't know if you have any stories behind the meaning of your tattoos, or, if you have any stories behind them at all, but if you do, I'd love to hear about those.
So, most of my tattoos are wolves. I'm just super obsessed. It's also like my fight name, TK the Wolf, which comes from kind of like I play some video games too, so my video game characters be called that and stuff. My Shiba looks like a little wolf. Yeah, so very on point and on character, I guess. But of all of my tattoos, I think the one that's the best story is probably the one on my back. Um, it looks just like a bunch of ink kind of going down the back spine, but it's Korean hancha, which means it's Chinese script, but uh, from the Korean kind of origin. So like a Chinese person reading it will say like that is written kind of incorrectly, but because it's associated with a Korean word, it's correct for Koreans. It's the last Taekwondo tenet, so indomitable spirit. um, I'm half Korean. I started in Taekwondo, so I felt that's one of my favorite tenets ever. It's a tattoo I've wanted for a long time. But of course, since it's in, a traditional calligraphy script, I always wanted, somebody who actually knew how to do that to tattoo me. And so this tattoo I got right before my first fight. It's kind of crazy because I got it like way too close. I wasn't really thinking, way too close to the fight. It ended up being fine, didn't get infected or anything. But so once I left Taekwondo, I felt like I had lost some of my culture because, it's Korean, I'm Korean. I felt like I was like, tied to it a little bit. So I felt like this was a way to kind of take that back a little bit and also kind of, give strength in my fight career moving forward. And I was just actually reminiscing on that tattoo the other day with my husband, because I hadn't actually thought or realize that it's been with me since the very beginning of my fight career. So
Mm.
it's kind of special.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very, it's almost like a marker for the start of a new journey,
Yeah.
in your Muay Thai career, so that's really cool. You mentioned you play video games. What type of video games do you play?
Kind of like how I like to read fantasy books. I'm like an RPG player. So my favorite game of all time is Fallout 3. I play the PlayStation right now, PS5. Most recently, my favorite is the Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West saga. And although I have played that already, so currently I'm playing this cute little game called Tunic. It's like a little fox, and there's like no direction to this game. You just wake up on the shore, and then you just have to figure it out. It's super
Mm,
relaxing, to be honest. Uh,
interesting.
but I played that during my fight week leading up to this most recent fight. Um,
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that out. That sounds kinda fun, and
it's
so,
awesome.
um okay, before I let you go, I want to give you the floor to A, make any shout outs to anybody that's supporting you or anything like that. B, how can people support you as you get ready for um, going to Greece and going to compete at the IFMA World Championships? I don't know if you have like a GoFundMe or a fundraiser because you have to raise funds to go over there. And then three, how can people follow you on social media?
Okay. So for shout outs, I mean, I gotta shout out my gym. I just love my gym and the community there so much. Especially the fight team and the women on the fight team are just phenomenal. Um, my coach, literally the best coach ever. I know everyone always says that and everyone believes it, but it's true. He's the best coach out there. I it took me a while to find him, but I've never seen someone so dedicated and organized and thoughtful. And it's the main reason I'm honestly still in Boston. We were actually thinking about moving, just exploring the world a little bit more. So, thank you, Jake and Bill and Hard Knocks. Um, I'm actually going to be starting with a new strength coach in Turbo, so Ross Levine's company, and I'll be working with Zach for my strength coach. So I'm very excited to start with them and for them to help me get better and reach my peak performance uh, for this tournament. Um, I'm also just started working with the female fight nutritionist, so I wanted to shout her out too because she was helping me, overcome that fueling issue I was dealing with from the tournament, the Grand Nationals. So I already feel very confident in her, and uh, I guess I can't forget my husband. He literally he has a full-time job and I'm here, I'm working a little bit less because I want to focus more on my training camp. And he's doing everything in his power to make sure I get enough time to rest, and I'm making sure I'm eating my food. And um, man, camp would be much tougher without him. So um, yeah, thank you. um,
Before
in
you
term
before you continue, one question I did mean to ask that I normally ask, and you mentioned food, and it made me think about it. When you finish cutting weight, or really after competition, what is your go-to meal? Like, what are you eating, or what is your guilty pleasure food? Maybe.
I I have a sweet tooth, so I also just love carbs. So it's really anything carby. I love cookies, and my favorite flavor right now is black sesame. So anything
Ooh,
black sesame cookies, black sesame smoothie. I don't know, I just want to eat all of that. Asian bread, Korean breads. Yeah, carbs.
man,
Pancakes.
yeah, that sounds awesome. All right. Anyway, continue with your shout outs. How can people support you, and how can people follow you on social media?
Yes. So in terms of support right now, so I have a t-shirt fundraiser that's been going on. The store for the t-shirt is closing on May 1st. I've considered leaving it open to help maybe if people want to buy a few more. Um, I'll consider a GoFundMe, but I was just relying on the t-shirt fundraiser. So the link is in my bio if you want to consider just buying a t-shirt. It'll just help support me in all my efforts to get to IFMA. Um, but you can follow me on Instagram. I'm mostly only on Instagram. My handle is a little tricky to spell, but it is TAEKYUNGWOLF. So Tag Young Wolf. Tag Young is what TK stands for. Um, but yeah, so that's my handle. If you wanna honestly, if you wanna reach out, even just say hi, have a PT question, injury question, want to talk about Muay Thai, or if you want to support me, I'm here for it. So just let me know.
Absolutely. This has been TK Mosher, competing in the 54 kilo division at the IFMA World Championships, representing USA Muay Thai. TK, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
And we
you.
look forward to supporting you and cheering you on at the IFMA World Championships here in about a month.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.